Welcome to the Lodge. You've accessed
The Lodgecast Experience.
Warning, warning, dangerous spoilers ahead. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Lockdown Hot Takes. I'm your Lodge Best. With me as always is Brother Bishki.
Hello.
The briny Brother Lucas.
Yo, yo, yo.
With a pickle-centric Zoom background, Brother Dave is back with us in the house tonight.
Shalom, everybody.
And Lodge favorite, the incomparable Brother Zach is back.
I also must say shalom.
Double shalom. We are covering a movie tonight called An American Pickle. And it is a Seth Rogen double starrer. It stars Seth Rogen and Seth Rogen. It's one of those films. Did anybody have any preconceived notions of this?
This is one of those movies, again, I had zero awareness, like zero. So when you guys were talking about it, I had no frame of reference. I had no idea what it was, didn't know what it was. So it was a total surprise.
You were just going with the pickle talk. You were going along with it.
I read this short story in the New Yorker when it was a two-parter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I remember reading it and quite enjoying it. I want to say like 2012, maybe. So it was called The Sellout, and it was written in the New Yorker. Simon Rich, I want to say, is the writer, and he also adapted it. And I think he's like an SNL writer or something.
Sure.
So that was, I knew they were making a film out of it. And I saw the trades when they announced that they sold it to HBO. So I was curious how it was going to turn out.
Brother Dave, what's your history with the pickle?
This is a project that actually I've been aware of for quite a while because I happened to read the script a few years ago, came across my desk, I took a look at it.
Ooh, insider scoop.
I was aware of this project, and I'm what you might call a bit of a Rogen aficionado.
Yes, that makes sense with your Apatow lust.
Yeah, it all goes back to Freaks and Geeks, man. You know, like that was the high point for me. So I've had my Rogen fan club membership since then, and he really hasn't done much to throw me off of my fandom. For a guy who works as much as he does, I feel like
So you were pumped for this?
Yes, I was. I mean, not unrealistically, but I was looking forward to it.
And Bishki, did you have any knowledge of this? What were your feelings going into the pickle?
I didn't have anything. I was like, Rogen versus Rogen. Let's do this.
So let's get into it. They start with a flashback to the
old
fictional country of Schlopska, and Herschel, who is the Rogen from the past, has his eye on a young lady played by Sarah Snook from Succession, which, if any of our listeners have not experienced Succession on HBO, I mean, what the fuck are you doing? Turn this off, throw your phone in the garbage disposal, and just fucking turn it on and binge it. Like, you got to do it.
I love
I
it.
concur.
Yes. Yeah. Succession's for bones.
Yeah, best show on TV right now. Yeah.
And so we kind of see them get together in the past and have dreams of the future and their progeny becoming successful.
Well, he has a dream. He has a dream to be able to one day make enough money that he can drink seltzer water.
That's true. There's a lot of seltzer water talk, which is right in line with 2020. As I drink my limoncello LaCroix as we record this.
And her dream was to be able to make enough money that they could afford a nice gravestone one day. I think those were the two dreams. Seltzer and respectful burial, I think, were the two ambitions. Yeah.
They move to America. He has a job killing rats at the pickle plant. He falls into the big vat of pickles, and then they condemn it immediately, and he's stuck in the vat for 100 years. So that's kind of the setup. He comes out of the vat preserved perfectly, and they do the thing where there's a press conference and they say, via narration. It was scientifically explained to everybody's satisfaction, and it was all taken care of, and we don't need to talk about the far-fetched nature of this setup any longer.
Yeah, I appreciated all that. The briskness of how quickly it moved into its high concept premise. I was like, okay, we set it up. Let's see what we're going to do with this. So I liked the pace.
And then he is matched up with his sole living relative, which is played again by Seth Rogen, Ben, who is his great grandson. And then they just kind of hang out for a bit, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Spike Jonze adaptation.
There's a brisk start. They set it all up. They get you there. And then I just don't know what they do with it then, like they were in such a hurry to get us set up, and then we're just kind of chilling.
Well, there's a bit of a culture clash narrative being set up, right? Where you got the guy from the past adapting to modern society. And then obviously there's some gags about hipster Brooklyn and how Herschel kind of fits in because everyone's so artisanal and bespoke. And, he blends right in with his facial hair and his outfit and the way he makes pickles.
Right.
Yes, definitely. And there's a lot of very easy humor with that. And I feel like, at least in my experience of this, the setup felt like it was going to be an update on Idiocracy. And in 2020, if you're doing that, the frozen guy wakes up in the future and comments on the crazy shit he sees. If you're going to do that, like, the opportunities for parody are limitless. And that's what makes this kind of almost perversely narrow focus and simplistic scope frustrating to me. Like, I was pretty frustrated by it because they're basically they're doing an ad for SodaStream. He's excited about the seltzer water, which is great. And the clothes, but it doesn't have huge ambitions. And
No.
I get accused of putting square pegs in round holes a lot with these movies. Maybe it doesn't want that, but it just seems like a missed opportunity for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I second all that. I feel the same way.
Look, I'm going to play devil's advocate and say that it did have big ambitions, but those ambitions weren't necessarily comedic. And that might be an issue with the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see that.
Because it seems like it's so broad, like it'll be really funny, like you're saying, Lodge Master. But yeah, it really does go for the smaller dramatic moments, which are kind of funny in like an ironic way or just like intellectual way, because it's like treating it so seriously with like gravitas, and like every action has real world consequences, which is kind of funny.
I think the premise is kind of the generation that came over on the boat sacrificed so much to make a better life for those that came after them. What should be the humor of it is the disappointment between the aspirations of the hardworking immigrant generation with the modern sloth of 2020.
Which could be hilarious.
And
but the younger guy isn't a sloth, really. Like, it's not pointed enough,
For me, my big takeaway on why it doesn't work that well, it's interesting that you brought up Idiocracy, and then of course there's Sleeper. So there's the Rip Van Winkle aspect to it, but then there's, to me, take that out of it for a second, and the problem with it is it's trying to be like this fish out of water story. So then you look at the great comedy Fish Out of Waters, Being There, The Jerk, Elf,
Being There for sure. Yeah.
These and the problem with this is we have two co-leads. Herschel's kind of the funny man and Ben is the straight man, I guess. But I'm not really rooting for one over the other as they try to sabotage each other. And yeah, I agree. It doesn't really go anywhere. Like, kind of one of the great things about those other movies is that the main character is almost like this simple idiot, oblivious to being a simple idiot. And it's a commentary on the rest of society, how they react and elevate the idiot or whatever. Being There, The Jerk, Elf, all those have that. But in this, like, there's a few moments where we're kind of making fun at how people react to, artisanal hipster culture with the pickle brine, how gross it is. And everyone's like, this is amazing. It's so authentic. Like, But
He
we're
starts
not-
making artisan pickles that become a big hit with hipsters, and he only uses rainwater and produce that he finds in the trash.
and he's abusing interns, and it's almost like it has a few jokes, like a half dozen jokes about hipster culture or like startup tech culture, but they kind of, like Bishke's saying, like the beginning had this like clip pace, but I feel like every time they'd get to a new section of friction, it would be like a montage, and we just like move through it and move through it and move through it. And there were no like there were like very few set pieces where we lived in watching a character try and do something and struggle and like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So it was, and I wasn't really rooting for the Ben character to do anything. Like,
Well, it feels arbitrary that Herschel and Ben turn on each other for the majority of the movie. Like, why? Who thought that was a good idea?
Yeah.
Like, who thought that was the right move to make it funny in an 89-minute long fucking movie? It's like not fun that they're sabotaging each other. At least it wasn't for me.
It's weird because in the short story, I feel like you have both. At least my memory of it was both funny and kind of poignant in people reflecting on the sacrifice that their ancestors made for them, and that Ben could care less about going to the synagogue or whatever is very relatable for me. But I just feel like there wasn't like a lot of humor drawn out of it. You're right. They went for they kind of went for the heart value whenever they encountered that. And it wasn't really that moving, or like, I don't know. It was.
And they basically turned Herschel into Borat,
right,
with his antiquated ideas clashing with modern day sensibilities. But it's all so predictable. Like, I just really expected a sharper take on this setup. And I don't know. Bishke, what were you thinking during this?
Yeah, I mean, I was just kind of searching for the themes it was trying to go for, because it was kind of all over the place.
It's a moving target.
And at times I thought it hit the mark, but then it would kind of move on to the next thing. But I kind of liked how quickly it was moving, because if it did dwell on just him and Rogen in an apartment for, an hour and a half, I don't know if I could handle it. But
you and your one setting movie phobia.
But I do have a love for the high concept. Like, I saw potential there, and I think it certainly could have, if it centered, especially when he kind of goes on, he becomes this internet sensation for some of his free speech. And he kind of goes on a kind of Jordan Peterson talking tour of the country. And I thought that they could have milked that for more, I thought, but then
it feels like the movie's too short to deal with any of this.
Yeah.
So it's just like a sampler platter of all this stuff. They're throwing it all at the wall to see if anything sticks. And to me, it just all feels like a series of Funny or Die skits kind of strung together. Now, super Rogen fan, Brother Dave, what are you thinking as we slowly dismantle this American pickle? What's going through your mind right now?
I can't disagree with anything I'm hearing. However, I do believe the movie has positive qualities, a lot of them, that should be
bring the love and light. Bring the love and light into this brine.
Well, before I forget, I actually want to talk about one negative thing real quick, because I do find it fascinating to kind of dissect why it's not as successful as we all seemingly feel it could have been. And it was actually something my wife pointed out. Well, in the middle of the movie, she was doing analysis, which almost never happens, but she was frustrated. And she was like, once the rivalry starts, she was like, oh my God, like, this Ben character is a fucking psychopath. Like, how on earth do you treat your ancestor who miraculously comes into your life? And I don't care.
Supernaturally comes into your life. Yeah.
And obviously there's going to be a culture clash, and he's not going to understand, and he's going to put his foot in his mouth, whatever. Like, I don't care. You don't sabotage his life and like try and make him destitute, right? Like that. Yeah. So it's hard to root for Ben after that,
Right.
And I can't disagree with that.
His whole character feels like a plot contrivance when that's happening, and then you just don't give a shit.
And I also just feel it all comes down to tone. And for me, like, when you start with the high concept premise with the pickles and everything, it's really hard to go serious.
Absolutely.
And I feel like there's just a lot of like really heartfelt, serious shit. And honestly, like that shit kind of resonates with me a little bit because it reminds me of my family and my ancestors, you know? And so like I'm primed to really relate to the Ben character and what he's going through. You know what I mean? And I think when I read it, I actually did more than watching the movie. And I think it's all a tonal thing, you know, when you have this like early Woody Allen or Mel Brooks zany concept, and then you lean so hard into the drama of it all. The drama works so much better as like an undercurrent to the wackiness.
Right.
That's not the case. Like the whole third act when they go to Schlupst and they reunite in a synagogue and do the minyan and everything. Like that shit is almost just like purely dramatic at that point. And why? It's a fucking pickle movie.
It really is.
It's like Eat, Pray, Love, man. Eat, Pray, Love.
Yeah.
The funny thing is I've been in that position a couple of times in public in weird situations where
asking for a warm place to sleep.
No, having strange Jewish men come up to me and ask me to join their minyan because they could tell I was Jewish and they needed 10 guys. That happened to me once, I think like in the Santa Monica Pier, and then once in a parking lot at a Fish concert. Neither time did I join the minyan.
You didn't do it just to see.
Yeah, I didn't want to get like attacked by a bunch of Hasidic ninja Jews, you know? I'm like, sorry, guys.
They shake you down for acid at the Fish concert.
It was weird.
I mean, I probably enjoyed the first 5 minutes the most of the whole movie, I think.
It was great. The first 5 minutes are great. You're like, oh man, what kind of delicious insights are we in for once they get to modern day Brooklyn?
Even before that, like when he's sitting with Sarah Snook at like this disgusting like swamp bog or whatever, and she's like, "Wow, thank you so much for taking
their little
me
romantic bog."
Yeah, I audibly laughed there, and he's a ditch digger, and then he's a rat killer.
The tone was right on. Like, keep that vibe.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what vibes we conjure up when we go to them pickle bones. Brother Dave, unleash your pickle bones on us.
You guys, I'm not a fan of pickles, first of all. I just want to say that.
Dude, your screen is covered in them, man. It's all I see now.
Yeah, it's taken a lot for me to put that up.
I love pickles,
I love
so it's
pickles.
looking real
What about
nice
when you go
me.
to Cantor's and they give you a nice plate? That's not for you.
Remember those days, the before times when we would go to restaurants like Cameron's?
Give you a nice plate. Sometimes you ask for a second plate because you eat them all.
Those were the pickle days, gentlemen.
People love them. It's just not for me. It's not to my taste. I'm not judging
What
anyone
about
else.
this movie?
This movie, also not quite to my taste. But I think I'm just guessing based on your reactions that I might be the high bone count with a strong 2.5 pickle bones.
2.5 pickle bones.
Yeah.
All right. That's the Rogen fandom coming through.
It could be,
in
you know,
the clutch.
I laughed out loud a few times, and I laughed within myself several times. And I was touched by the overall message, and I enjoyed it. It was short. It was
short.
It was very short.
I didn't commit too much to it. I think it was a good movie, just not a very good movie.
I respect that. 2.5 love and light pickle bones from Brother Dave. Brother LT, you've been kind of an enigma on this one.
I'm just melting over here like a candle. It's like 88 degrees outside at 9
It's
o'clock at night.
so
And
nasty.
like I turned my
It's
AC
so
off like
nasty.
when we started, and I just can't move a lot. So it looks like I'm sleeping, but I'm really just sitting perfectly still, listening like a frog on a log.
Stewing in your own brine.
Yeah. I gotta echo and piggyback what Brother Dave said. You know, like I wish it was funnier and not so serious at times, considering like how outlandish the Encino Man premise is. And like a monkey's paw wish, like as much as I love a good paced movie or a quick pace, like, or it moves at a steady clip, this eventually, like, they just never ever pump the brakes. Like they just keep going. And
Right.
like Brother Zach mentioned, it's just like, yeah, they plow through a lot of interesting stuff that I feel if you just simplified it more, like The Jerk or Elf or whatever we talked about, like, yeah, you could really get more mileage out of it. but it's sort of half-hearted once it kind of like gets in the middle midpoint there. So I have to give it 2.5 bones as well. Like it's pretty solid. But,
2.5 from LT.
But it was an
Wow.
interesting note. I forget who said it first, but like it's interesting. Like I was asking myself, like, yeah, why does it have to be Seth Rogen in both roles? Like you could easily have, Danny McBride as one of the guys or whoever, and it might actually make it even I don't know, funnier.
Right.
He's powered down. 2.5. Brother Bishke, what do you got going on?
I got a little love and light here.
Ooh.
I wasn't really expecting too much because I think it was kind of lukewarm in the Rotten Tomatoes score that I peaked. But the kind of reminded me of the high concept of a great film by Alexander Payne called Downsizing. Where it could have the heights that it could have reached if it had been a little more focused.
Downsizing is a must see for all of our listeners.
Yeah,
The potential
of the high concept movie, but
Yeah.
And it's extra long, way longer than this one.
yeah, it had this one, but I was entertained throughout, and the fast pace we had some problems with, but I just found it refreshing because we've been watching a lot of brooding, slow, just movies that are 90 minutes but still feel longer, and so this one, it wrapped it up quick, ended on a sentimental note. Seth Rogen was I thought he was fine for both parts. The director is a cinematographer, I guess, mostly Brandon Trost, and I thought it looked good. So 2.5 bones. Could have done more with the premise, but still enjoyable.
2.5. Brother Zach.
I smell Oscars. Call me crazy.
I think we've landed on it. I, by the way, thought Rogen did a good job as Herschel, but maybe you make Ben a little more interesting, and that would traditionally be the Rogen role, but I'm happy he could play either, but I do think we hit on it. It should be two different actors. The gimmick doesn't really make a ton of sense. It doesn't add anything to it.
It
And
would
I
only
think
make sense if there was a character or plot line where they get confused, like Big
They do.
Business or something.
they do at the end. They switch places at the end.
Right.
But I feel like we didn't need that, and the movie, So
that was
to
like a
me-
throwaway. I mean, like integral, like Secret to My Success, like running back and forth type shit.
Right, but I think the movie would have been better if we did if the whole movie was the POV of Herschel, and Ben is a character, but it's not a two-hander. I think that's a better movie, and I think it could have the potential for more hijinks and stronger juxtaposition for humor and fish out of water. In the fish out of water style that it's trying to be, it seemed. So as is, I appreciate that it's brisk. Rogen's giving it its all. I was rooting for it, but as my late Zadie used to say often, zoigatus, which means, what are you going to do? I give it 2 bones.
2.5, 2.5, and 2.
Just as the resident Rogen fanboy, I'm going to call you all to task and say it was absolutely fine for him to play both roles. And honestly, I think the way to fix the movie would be to multiplicity his ass. Give me 8 Rogans.
Yes.
Different costumes.
Yeah.
I'm into it.
Give me a whole minion of Rogans.
I love it.
I don't mind that.
Anything to add some meat to what this ended up being. You guys are being way too fucking nice. Seth Rogen I trust his taste. He's very talented, and he does usually do the right thing, but this is so undercooked. The pickles are still cucumbers here, guys.
Underbrined.
It's so underbrined. The concept, the setup is perfect. It gets us there quickly, and then they just tread fucking seltzer water for the rest of the runtime. The stupid sojourn to the Canadian border that just eats up an interminable amount of time. It's not funny. It's fucking stupid. And there's no sharp commentary at all. Like this is just some lazy shit. And I had high hopes for this because of the people involved and because of a pretty much layup of a setup for 2020, like a target-rich environment. This hit like but a small thimbleful of the targets that it could have hit. So I'm giving this 1 bone.
Wow.
This is not what you came for. This is not what you wanted, and I do not recommend it whatsoever. But I'm happy that you guys found some love and light. And Lucas, quite frankly, I am shocked at your 2.5. I think you fell asleep.
I was awake. It was just like the drama of it. I appreciated, like, certain moments, like when they first meet each other at the police station or whatever. It was kind of funny. It just had things to keep me going.
Well, guys, we got pickled.
The last thought I have is I think the short story was written, I'd have to look it up, but I want to say around 2012-ish. And my thought is that when it was written, it was probably around the same time that we all remember that famous, like, may have even been the first ever Portlandia episode of The Dream of the 90s is Alive in Portland. And then didn't they do like The Dream of the 1890s is Alive in Portland? And they were making fun of like the whole bespoke like Amish beard culture in hipsterdom and everything. And I feel like this was also written around that time. And maybe you're right, Lodge Master. Maybe the jokes just don't hold up 8 years later, You
got to punch it up. You got to make it 2020 compliant, y'all. Nevertheless, thank you guys for coming out and getting pickled with us. Love seeing you guys. Yeah. And I'm still rooting for Rogen. What do you got next, boy? Bring it up. Serve it up.
Love and pickles, y'all.
Funny people too. Do it, Seth.
Stay cool.
Love and pickles.
Hey!